Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everybody. Thank you for tuning into another Supatease video. We got another PvP tier list. This one is going to be oriented around the ease of taking down this specialization. So this type of video is going to be really good for you if you don't know what the best target is in PvP, especially in solo shuffle and things like that, because this is easily costing you matches by just not attacking the right target. So by the end of the video, you're going to know exactly what is the best target in what situation. So if a specialization is S tier, this basically means if that spec is on the other team, you should probably train it into the dirt until it's dead. If it's F tier, it means you should probably avoid even looking in that class's direction. It's pretty much invincible and you're wasting your time. Some specializations are situational, and I will cover each of those situations so that if you're that type of class combination, you definitely want to attack it, but sometimes you don't want to attack it, and this one will be really important for figuring out those specializations, because some of them aren't as cut and dry, but some of them definitely are. Okay, so Blood Death Knight. This is an easy F tier. You pretty much never want to attack a tank specialization. These guys just don't die. Don't waste your time. It's not going to die. Frost Death Knight. Now, this is one where I think if there is a Frost Death Knight, you're pretty much going to be training it into the dirt. It's either S or A. Especially if you're melee DPS like warriors and stuff like that, you're going to be trucking down a Death Knight. But even casters as well, you can pin them, kite them around. I think in general, if there's a Frost Death Knight, it is a good idea to be targeting them. Unholy Death Knight, same type of deal here. I feel like I'm throwing all you Death Knights under a bus right now or something by pointing this out, that going after a Death Knight is a good idea. They are not really mobile, which is really good for making a target in PvP. Survivability is pretty low, especially on the physical end. I think it is a good idea to attack them, generally speaking. Now, Havoc Demon Hunter. I think this is one where it is situational. If you're a spellcaster, you got damage over time effects. You don't really want to be focusing a lot of your attention onto a Demon Hunter. But if you're a Stunlock class like a Rogue, you definitely should be looking at targeting a Havoc Demon Hunter. So very situational. If you can stun and burst, definitely go after a Havoc Demon Hunter. If you can't stun and burst, you have limited crowd control, and you're kind of damage over time effect wizards, you dot them, but you're generally going to be crowd controlling and more or less trying to avoid them is going to be the main plan for Havoc Demon Hunter. Vengeance Demon Hunter, same type of deal. Tank spec, don't go over there. Don't try and tag it. It's not going to die. Balance Druid. This one is probably a bit of a mixed bag. I think that it is generally a good idea. I would say at the lower ratings, really good. If there's a Balance Druid at lower rating, 100% you should target it. As you get higher up on the ladder, I think it does become a little bit worse to target. So it's probably like an A or an S. If you're low rated, it's an S tier. You should attack a Boomkin if it's in a game, and probably a little bit lower as you move down the pole. But definitely a good target to attack. You want to be focusing on interrupting cyclones and trying to keep them in bear form as much as possible. Feral Druid. This is another one where if there is one, it's probably A tier or S. Attacking a Feral Druid, I think in solo shuffle, for example, is a really good thing to do. Force them into bear form again, keep them on the defensive is going to be a good idea. I think the reason maybe these guys aren't S tiers, their mobility is a bit better. So if they can start kiting away from you, they can avoid death, unlike Death Knights. So maybe this is more fair to put them on about an A, but Feral Druid is generally not a bad target to go after. Guardian Druid, same type of deal, tank spec, you're probably going to want to avoid this. Resto Druid, this is actually one where we don't see healers getting attacked very often, but out of all of the healers, attacking a Resto Druid can be really good. Forcing them to put hots on a third target is really important. Catching them off guard, swapping to them can be really good. So I actually want to say that, situational, if you can swap to them, it's really good. But you probably don't want to be tunneling them. I can't, unless you're like some sort of Death Knight cleave, I really don't think you want to be tunneling them. So is this a situational, or is this like an A tier? Maybe like a B, middle of the pack. If there's a Resto Druid, definitely keep your mind on attacking them. They can be taken down, but you don't want to be tunneling them for too long, I don't think, especially if they're pulling you into bad positions. Devastation Evoker. Now, this is, again, a situational one. If your melee attacker is like a warrior, this class is going to kite you and you're never going to hit it, and it's going to be really hard, and you're going to be wasting your time. But if you've got stun locks like a rogue, or if your casters can hit them from ranged pretty easily, I think it is a good idea to attack them. So for me, this is kind of a situational pick as Devastation Evoker. Some dangers of attacking them as melee cleave also is that you're going to stack up and they can double cleave you and double stun you. It can get pretty dangerous pretty quickly. So unless you have some sort of stun lock with lots of burst damage, and you're melee DPS, I don't think you should attack it. If you're casters, it's fine to attack it. Renewing Blaze, you want to be trying to, not attacking into Renewing Blaze or have some sort of MS effect to prevent its healing. That's going to be the main recovery for the Devastation Evoker. Preservation Evoker, similar to Resto Druid, if this class is getting close to you, I actually think that people ignore Preservation Evoker too much. I actually think attacking it is a really good idea because they have such a small range. They have to get really close to the fight. You can force a lot more cooldowns from a Preservation Evoker if you hit them, if they come close. Again, similar to Resto Druid, you don't want to be chasing them into bad positions, but they will often put themselves in good positions based on the restrictions of their range. So I think Preservation Evoker is a good class to attack. Beast Mastery Hunter. This is another one. It's similar. It's squishy class, but if you can get kited too much, like if you're a warrior or something like that, it can become pretty difficult to actually just make sure that you're staying on the target. I do think it is still a decent target to attack, though. So A or B is really the question for me at the moment. I think in general, if you're casters, you definitely can hammer down on Beastmaster Hunters. Most melee DPS, it's mostly just warriors and stuff like that. But even then, you're probably going to be going after them. Beastmaster Hunter is still a decent target to attack. Survival Hunter, I think this is S tier. I think if there's a Survival Hunter, you should attack it. Unlike Beastmaster, this guy's got to get close to the fight at least somewhat, and some of the time. I think it's really squishy and easy to take down because of that. Cleaving its pet is also a really good idea. Generally a really good target to go after. Marksmanship Hunter, same type of deal. You want to be attacking this. Really dangerous to leave it open and just free casting and doing damage without putting some sort of pressure on it, making it move around to prevent it from just spamming aim shots. It's also a lot more fragile and has to be a little bit less mobile than Beastmaster. So maybe Beastmaster is maybe more like BA. I think it's the limitations in mobility on these hunter specs that make them better targets than Beast Mastery, and maybe Beast Master should go lower. We might move it later. Arcane Mage. This is one, generally speaking, you probably don't want to attack it. It might depend on what classes you are. Like if you're dot classes and wizards, definitely attack it, keep damage on it. But if you're melee DPS and you've got something else that you could attack, you probably want to attack that. So it's, again, you don't want to leave a mage free casting, spamming arcane missiles and arcane blasts and stuff like that. If you're a feral druid, you definitely attack it. Like if you're high mobility classes, beast mastery, feral, you attack it. So maybe it's situational. If you're high mobility, feral, beast mastery, you definitely attack arcane mage. If you're limited mobility and things like warrior and stuff like that, and you really can't get to the target, it's probably not a good idea. It's probably better to crowd control them. But it also depends on what the other partner is. So maybe because it depends on what the other partner is. I think it's situational. I think it's situation for Arcane. Fire Mage, this is an S tier. You got to tunnel this class. If you're not and they're running glass cannon, you're just going to regret it. Attacking the Fire Mage is going to be really important. Just make them unstable, especially with how low stamina they have at the moment. It's going to be really important. Frost Mage, I think this is also a decent target to go after. Again, it's melee DPS. It's going to be a little bit harder, but you want to keep it kind of like on the back foot, more or less. Maybe it's here. Is it really there? No, I think going after Frost Mage is a good idea. Definitely one of the better targets to have overall in PvP. Mistweaver Monk. Now this is one. It's situational. If you have stuns and they have no trinket, it's really good. If you have no stuns and no way to lock them down, you shouldn't even touch them. So I think it's situational. You're starting to notice a trend here for the situational is if you have a stun and burst, this is a great target. If you don't have a stun and burst, it's probably not that great of a target. So situational for Mistweaver Monk. Brewmaster, tank spec, you don't want to mess with that. It's not a good idea. Windwalker Monk. Now this one is a great target. Even in the hands of a really good player that knows how to port, it's going to be a really squishy class. You can kill through the defensives. Just note that with this class, when you're attacking it in the hands of a good player, when they port away, don't chase them unless you're absolutely sure you can get back to them, because most often it's better just to hit their partner, because they'll be sitting in the room once they ported, wasting their time while you're killing their partner. So switching when they use their mobility is important, but when they're in the fight, I think it's a really good idea to attack a Windwalker Monk. Holy Paladin, this is probably the best healer to attack, honestly. All the Holy Paladins out there, I know you guys are getting like, it's not a good time to be a Holy Paladin, but out of all of the healers, I think attacking a Holy Paladin is generally like the best healer to attack. It's really tough for them to recover and deal with and to get trained down, especially by like Ret Paladins, things like that. So if there's a Holy Paladin, I think it can be a really good idea to attack them. Again, it does depend on your classes. If you have crowd control like a Hunter or something, you probably don't want to attack a Paladin. But for the most part, attacking a Holy Paladin can be a really good idea. Protection Paladin, again, F tier. you're just never going to kill them through the infinite amounts of bubbles. Ret Paladin. I still think Ret Paladin is a good target, even despite the defensive buffs they got in 10.0.7. With Shield of Vengeance and Divine Protection as their main defense. I still think it is a decent point to attack them. And the main reason for that is mobility, but they are pretty tanky. I wouldn't say they're like the absolute best target to attack as opposed to these guys, but they're still a really good target just because they have limited mobility. Discipline Priest. This is like F tier. I really don't think you should ever attack it. Like maybe if you're a Death Knight, but even then, this priest just take a lot of reduced damage when you attack them. It's going to be really tough to kill them. They've got multiple schools of magic, a lot of instant casts. I think it's a bad idea to attack a disc priest personally. The only time maybe you could kill this is like if you've got silent stun in combo together, and that's really limited. So I'd say disc priest is probably you just want to avoid it. Holy Priest, similar to Resto Druid, maybe it's on the A tier as well. I haven't seen a lot of Holy Priest enough to say this, though. It used to be that Melee Cleaves just ran Holy Priest down as nothing you could do and you died. But I have not seen that happening a lot. So maybe B tier is a safer spot for them because a lot of Holy Priests just stay 80 yards away now. And if they're staying 80 yards away, you don't want to attack that. You shouldn't attack that. So I think it's probably harder to kill it than a Preservation Evoker based on the way they can play with ranged. And now Shadow Priest. This is the most contentious one because I feel like a lot of people think that Shadow Priest is like an amazing target, which I think is incorrect. I think Shadow Priest is one of the most difficult classes in the game to kill. There's very few specs. Like Windwalker Monk can absolutely bowl over a Shadow Priest, but pretty much 99% of the other classes, you're going to be rotating indefinitely through their defensive cooldowns, and it's going to actually be really hard to kill them. So I actually think that Shadow Priest is not a great target in like 90% of scenarios. If you have a Windwalker, even if you're high physical damage, like if you got like a Rogue and a Shadow Priest on the other team, you can attack the Shadow Priest, but you should switch to the Rogue when you have a stun. So attacking the Shadow Priest to limit their casts and then switching to their off target if it's nearby to kill is going to be really good strategy overall. But tunneling them and just trying to kill them, I think is a bad idea. Assassination Rogue. I think this is the easiest rogue spec to kill. It just doesn't have the same type of durability as Outlaw or the reset capability of Subtlety. There's an Assassination Rogue. I think it is generally a pretty good idea to attack them in PvP. I think they're really squishy. So again, that comparison of Shadow Priest Rogue, like attack the Shadow Priest, but the intent is to kill the Rogue, or attack the Shadow Priest if they got a ret on their team, but the intent is to kill the ret, is going to be really important to finding victory. Outlaw Rogue. I haven't seen a lot of this. I actually want to feel. I feel like it's probably like B. It's probably still decently tanky and harder to kill. But honestly, it's tough for me to rank this one. So like middle is probably a safe spot. If there is one, you can try and feel it out. If it's not feeling good, then get off of it. Subtlety Rogue. This is again going to be another contentious one. I think it's F tier. I think attacking a Subtlety Rogue is the biggest bait you can ever fall for at the moment, especially when solo shuffle or ranked 3s with 2 charges of vanish, reduced cooldowns. Now with Cloak of Shadows basically being evasion and evasion itself, a good rogue is just never going to die. It's just going to be, you just think you've caught them and then they vanish. You think you caught them and they vanish. You think you caught them and they vanish. You think you caught them and they vanish. And in the hands of a really good player, you will never kill this class. You can try, keeping pressure on them is not a bad idea. Attacking multiple targets when another one's out of range, really good idea in PvP. But if your main intent and focus is to kill the Subtlety Rogue, I don't think that's a good idea. I think it's a trap, and it's one that you should not walk into voluntarily. Now, that being said, if you're lower rated, killing rogues is a good idea. The low-rated rogues are the ones that haven't figured out how to rotate their vanishes and evasions and Cloak of Shadows properly to be unkillable to get to the high ranks like the other rogues. But when you're getting to mid-range and higher ranking, and even some low-rated rogues that know how to use their survivability, I think it's a bad target. You shouldn't attack it. Ellie Shaman, this is like the #1 class in the game you should train. I almost want to put it like over here. Really important to attack an Ellie Shaman. Keep them back on the defensive. They got really weak defensives. You want to stay on top of them, overwhelm them, and swarm them. It's a really good idea. Definitely want to be going after Ellies if there is one. Enhancement Shaman. It's still a decent target to go after. It's got Burrow. I mean, Ellie's got Burrow too, but it's mostly the instant healing from Enhancement that makes it tough to kill. I think it's still generally a good idea to attack Enhancement Shaman. It just can be really tough to kill them sometimes. Similar to Red, I guess, right? The support and healing and tankiness of them. Limited mobility still makes them a decent target, especially for like caster cleaves. I think A tier. If there's an Enhancement Shaman, you should generally be trying to attack it. Resto Shaman. This one used to be used to tunnel into the dirt, train the blue. I don't know if that's true anymore. I don't think it is. Out of all the games that I have seen, the Resto Shaman is usually never the target that dies. I want to say that Resto Shaman is generally not a great target to attack. They can use Ascendants to recover themselves really easily. It's easier for them to position their Earthenwall totems if it's themselves being attacked. So yeah, it's generally not going to be a great target. Affliction Warlock, this is a mixed bag one. If you have ways to stop drain life and a lot of interrupts, I think they're a good target. So again, situational, I think, for Afflock. If you're melee DPS, great to attack an Affliction Warlock. If you're casters and you're dot based, terrible idea to attack an Affliction Warlock. They will drain life, heal through all your dots, and just be at full HP the entire game. So this is a great example of one that's situational. If you're casters, you should probably avoid attacking them. You can dot them up, try and get some rot, and mostly focus on crowd controlling them and interrupting them is going to be more focused for casters. Melee DPS with mortal wounds effects and lots of interrupts and stuns, you do want to attack an Affliction Warlock. So situational here for Affliction. Demonology, this is an F tier, easy F tier. This class is really tough to kill. Very tanky, especially with Soul Link, super hard to kill, coil disruption, tons of crowd control. It's generally not a great idea. Now, much like Shadow Priest, you kind of sometimes have to attack it to try and limit its cast time, but you should almost always switch off of it to the other target on the team, depending on what it is. You got Shadow Priest and Demo, you're in a tough group right there to find a kill. So maybe put it here. For C tier, this is like you can attack it, but you should be expecting that if there's something else that's squishier like this on the team, that you're going to swap off of it and kill it. But again, attacking it to limit its cast is a good idea, but attacking it as the primary kill target is going to be a bad idea. Destruction Warlock, this is again that one that's really tanky. It can be tough to kill. For melee DPS, I want to say it's probably like a middle. You kind of have to attack this thing. It's not that you want to attack it because it's really hard to kill. So maybe like B tier in terms of how easy it is to kill. And this, again, depends on the lobby. I know a lot of lower-rated Warlocks will think, well, it's really hard for me to survive with melee DPS on me. But a Warlock that knows how to use their amp curses, their snares, their tongues, their crit immunities, and their ports, it becomes really tough to kill them through Dark Pact. I think it's a bit easier to kill than Demonology, though. So maybe B tier here. Lower rating, it becomes better to attack them. Arms Warrior, I think this is another class that's like A or B, or A or S, honestly. A or S, I think it's pretty easy to kill Warrior, especially as casters. If you're ranged DPS, you should be killing a Warrior 100%. But even most melee DPS, I think attacking an Arms Warrior is a good idea. Fury Warrior, I think this is one, it's actually really hard to kill them. They have a lot of healing with Bloodthirst. Not like a super great target to train down. If you have a Death Knight, or if you have Fury Warrior and a Frosty K, you're always going to pick the Death Knight over hitting the Warrior. It's probably middle, somewhere down here. Prot Warrior, again, tank spec. We're not going to be wanting to attack that. It's not going to be a good idea. So let's just take a look at this. We finalized this for anybody here now at the end of the video. These guys down here, if you got lots of interrupts and stuns, it's a great idea to go after these targets or to swap to these targets. They'll get caught off guard, but tunneling them and getting pulled into bad positions or only having dots, not going to be super great for taking them out. These guys, you sometimes have to attack them if you're melee DPS to try and limit their casts, Demonology and Shadow, that is, but they're probably not going to die. And you should think about stunning an off target. If you have another class like this on their team, stunning their off target and going after them with your cooldowns and only attacking them to limit their damage. Should be the main game plan. Similar with Destro. You're attacking Destro and Shadow and Demo to limit their damage, but you should almost always save a stun and swap to one of these other targets that's easier to kill if they're in a match that with you specifically. But I do feel pretty comfortable saying that these classes are some of the best classes to kill or easiest classes to kill. These are the second row of classes that are easiest to kill. Maybe Fury Warrior goes down here. I think it's actually pretty tough to kill Fury Warrior. These guys a little bit tougher to kill. These guys really tough to kill. These guys you should never attack, and these guys are situational. Other than that, I hope this video has helped you out in terms of figuring out your targeting, which are the easiest things to try and go after right now, and it helps you get some points, gives you some rating. If you enjoyed this video, like this type of content, entertaining educational content, make sure to hit the subscribe button. Your support is greatly appreciated.